Welcome to this video, where we will talk about the movie X-Men 2. We will begin by exploring the movie storyline, summarize its plots, and discuss the cast and characters. Then we will take a closer look at the film production, details, and box office performance. Finally, we will share review and audience reaction to give you well-rounded perspective. Let's get started. X2 box office opening is the fourth biggest ever. X2 box office opening is the fourth biggest ever. The X-Men sequel blows away the original numbers more than 3 years later. X marked the number one spot at the box office this weekend as X2 X-Men United stormed into multiples and grossed a phenomenal $85.9 million in its first 3 days, according to studio estimates. The X-Men sequel starring Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry, Fat Jensen, Rebecca Romijn Stamos, Ian McKellen, and Patrick Stewart sold enough tickets to store the fourth biggest opening weekend ever, being Spider-Man, which holds the record with $140.8 million, and the two Harry Potter films, which earned $19.3 million and $88.4 million, and it's blow away the opening tally of the first X-Men, which grossed $54.5 million 3 summers ago. Sequels usually perform better than their predecessor, but no this much better. What does means for X2 features? Well, the first film made 35% of its total gross in its first weekend, even if X2 has already earned 40%. What does this mean for X2 features? Well, the first made 35% of its total gross in its first weekend, even if X2 has already earned 40% of its actual total. That still means it will end up in the $250 million range. In other words, the third X-Men seems likely, though since the title XXX has already been taken, they will have to call it X3, X2, and X Performance also cinematic the first weekend of May as the star of the Hollywood summer. Last year, Spider-Man debuted the same weekend after the box office slump of the last 4 months, down 12% from the last year. The industry need a hit like his badly. As expected, the Lizzie MC Guria movie climbed second place, though a very distant second, with $117.5 million, with X2 largely a male draw. Hilary Duff's legions of female fans were apparently excited to see their Destiny Channel's heroines on the big screen. The film made back its the reputed $50 million budget in just 3 days. The film made back its reported $50 million budget in just 3 days. Last week, top 3 films is slapped to loss this week. The Jon Stark thriller Identity fell 41% though $9.5 million, brightening its 10 days total $30.3 million, while Jack Nicholson and Adam Sandler hit comedy Anger Management declined 43% to $8.5 million. It's now standard at $150.5 million. Even the family flick holds dropped 48% to $6.5 million, increasing its total to $45 million. Looks like most kitted ditched their present for X2 this weekend. X2 X-Men United has topped the box office on both sides of Atlantic, with worldwide taking $137 million this weekend. This comic book sequel had the biggest ever global launch, opening in 93 terrorist simulatory, and has now battled Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers to hold the record for highest grossing opening weekend worldwide. Bryan Singer follow up to 2000 X-Men star Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry, Fat Jensen, Ian McKellen, and Patrick Stewart. It opened the box office in the UK, Ireland, as well as in the USA, where it grossed an estimated $80.5 million over the weekend. X2 is America's fourth highest opening for all time, behind Spider-Man $140.8 million 2002, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone $90.3 million 2001, and Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secret $88.4 million 2002. X2 X-Men United 2003. Running time 2 hours 14 minutes. MPAA rating PG/13. 2000 and 2005. Superheroes X. Elian Cumming. Anna Piccione. Brian Cox. Famous Jensen. Halle Berry. Hugh Jackman. Ian McKellen. James Marsden. Patrick Stewart. Rebecca Romijn. X2 X-Men United 2003. Emerge with fear, suspicions, and hearted mentor have conversation among the masses. Actors they plant a debut range are struggling over whenever not their words should be shared with these spiritual person. It's a stick situation made even more complicated when a Martin debut the integrate nightwear. Alain Gaming breaks into the White House and nearly kills the presidents of the United States. Meanwhile, worked overnight, Hugh Jackman continues his secret to uncover his past, which takes him to an adorable military based in Canada at Professor Xavier Patrick Stewart's School for Mutants. Life goes as usual, though that consists of the younger students such as the Rouge Anna Pion, Iceman Siobhan Oma, and Piora getting into a bit of trouble, while the teachers included Jan Carey, Cyclops, and Storm work to keep them in line. The next time feel like storming off, don't though enemy militant leaders Matico, responsible for the Liberty Island FICO, and now continue in a maximum security plastic prison, might have had something to do with the White House breach. Unanswered question about masterpiece. It's still masquerading as a prominent Taylor Jans has been dealing with troubling issue contact her telepathy and military scientist Colonel Vex Taylor. A shady anti-mutant returns with a patient for Manipulation is plotting to use manager knowledge about Mantis tracking fallacy, Caribou, location nightmares, uncovering Stark connection to Overline, and getting to the bottom of powerful storm that turns people into the puppets will be external for X-Men to start seemingly inevitable war between making and mints. Once again, three penalty of action though the over depends on firework and computer argument fight. Choreography grow ever more getting despite skill material asset and intelligence per deposit skill material artist and intricate sport of creativity. The filmmaker instant overusing usual and therefore uncovering actors and movements only dulls the faculty of fast-paced compact. The PG-30 rating is also curiously perhaps a dark edge is not less noticeable, especially when Volnar's clever as voluntary destructive weapons. Computer graphics are comparatively problematic when pop and unnecessary and complexly occasionally has difficulty looking top notch. Nevertheless, the sequel not only faithfully maintains the style and no tone of the original, it's brought a handful of factoring in new mints into the fold, boasting innovation, superpowers, and amusing former villains gain opportunity at Menton's reputations and transitory collaboration over extra duplicate. Unfortunately, with these bonds come ban one-liners, slow sports for renewed drama and in-depth comic relief. The scope may have increased, but too so has the running time and packing deficiency, particularly in the third act, where executed is currently X2 X-Men United is the kind of movie you enjoy for its moments, even though they never add up, made for and possibly by those with short attention spans. It lives in the present, providing one amazing spectacle after another, and not even trying to develop a story act. Having trained on the original X-Men 2000, I tried to experience the film entirely in the present, and the fact is, I had a good time, the bad good, like the comic book that inspire it. X2 begins with the premiere that maintain hero with specialized superpowers exists among us. Name the heroes, assign the power, and you are ready for perfectory dialogues leading up to a big two-page separate in which Lake and muscular beings hurtled through. You are ready for perfectory dialogues leading up to a big two-page separate in which Lake and muscular beings hurtle through dramatic showdowns. Like all the characters in the Marvel Comics stable, the X-Men have psychology or political problems. In the first movie, they were faced with crossing, and in the one on their right, a privacy is violated with the Mutants Resistance Act, of course. Like all the characters in the Marvel Comics stable, the X-Men have psychology or political problems. In the first movie, they were faced the agonists, and in this one, their right to privacy invocated what the Maintain Resistance Act. Of course, there will be audience number who believe Maintain should have no rights, and so X2 provide a valuable civics lesson. How you register a maintain who can teleport a shapeshift is not explained. Perhaps not canonically, the movie has a president who looks remarkable like George W. Bush. The film opens with one of its best scenes. A creatures with a forked tail attack the white horse and whooshes down cruiser and whooshes down crocodiles and cranes of walls while the secret steaming fired blindly. Tail attacked the White House and whooshed down crocodiles and cranes of walk while the Secret Service tails attacked the White House and whooshed down crocodiles and cranes of walls while the Secret Service fired blindly. The creature's purpose is apparently to give Maintain a bad name. To give Maintain a bad name. Inspire still more like underdream their lights. Inspiring still more laws under trimming their rights. Deposit all of the havoc and grandeur of the first film. Just about everybody is back for the sequel. Amazing that they were not tell kindly. Charles Xavier, Patrick Stewart, still runs his private school for young mutants. Magneto Ian McKellen still plots against him, and there is a new villain named Jan. William Taylor, Brain Cox. Deposit all of the havoc and cringe of the first film. Just about everybody is back for the sequel. Amazing that they were not all killed. Charles Xavier, Patrick Stewart, still run his private school for young Magneto Ian McKellen still plots against him, and there is a new villain named Jan. William Stryker, Brain Cox, who is assisted by the government to lead with the maintain there and use the front court maintain Yuriko Kelly who on his team. The principal maintains are in the credit orders worldwide. Hugh Jackman, who has played that extreme for his knuckles. Storm Halle Berry, who can control the weather. Dr. Jan Gary, whose power of telekinesis is growing stronger. Sally Cope, James Madison, who I shoot laser beam. Multiple Rebecca Johnson, a shapeshifter whose shape are mostly deathful nightmares. Elaine Cumming, the Terraforty, who attack the White House. Iceman, who can cool your drink and lots of other things. Puro, who can holler flames but needs a plot light, and huge, who can take on aspect of the personality around her. These superpowers are so oddly extrovert that an X-Men adventure is like a game of chess whatever every piece has a different movie. Some of the powers are someone Stormstone and Ariel passion by generation towards with her mental powers, and Dr. Jane Gary is able to restart an airplane in mid-air. Or than that, Voliner is one of the dominant characters even though his X-Act Knuckles seems pretty insignificant compared to the power of Pure or Sclapo. In a convention bought from Material Art movie, X2 pair characters with matching power so that when Boliner has his titanic battle, it's an enemy also equipped with blades. What would happen if Pure and Iceman went head to head? I visualized the two men of them in a pool of the water. One might responsibility ask what theater could possibly be magnificent to mints with such remarkable powers. But Magneto, who has serious personal issue with the mutants, has devised an innovation. One might responsible ask for theaters could possibly be magnifical to mutants with such remarkable powers. But Magneto, who has serious personal issue with the mutants, has devised an invention which I will not describe except to say that it's provide some of the movie best visual. I also admire the scenes where Dr. Jan Carey saves the X-Men A-Plan and Void Jensen Bride drama to the exercise of grey power instead of just switching it on and off. Since the earliest days of the Spider-Man Marvel horse have had personal problems to deal with, and there are classical Stan Lee moments there in the scenes where Iceman breaks the news to his parents that he is a mutant. The movie treats the dialogues as a coming out scene, half seriously as if providing inspection for real life presents and their children with secret. Other possibilities are left for future installment. Their romance in the movie between Ryoj and Iceman, but it does not explore the possibility of love between maintains with incompatible powers. How inconvenient if during sex your partner was accidentally teleport, frozen slash etc. Desclapo, where his dark glass. Their romance in the movie between Ryojo and Iceman, but it does not explore the possibility of love between maintained with incompatible powers. How inconvenient if during sex your partner with essentially teleport frozen slash etc. Desclapo with his dark glass to bed X2 X-Men United. Lakes a beginning, a middle, and an end, and exist more as a self-revealing loop in that if faithful to comic book themselves, which month after month and year after year seem frozen in the same fictional universe. Yes, there are comics in which the characters age and their world change, but the X-Men seems likely to continue forever. Domestic their superpowers in the show cause scenes after another, perhaps in the next generation were changed, but the X-Men seems likely to continue forever. Domestically, their superpowers in the show cause scenes after another. Perhaps in the next generation, a maintain will appear named Cerebro, who can write a better screenplay for them. Following a maintain accession attempt on the presents Colonel William Stryker incidents, a war on maintain, especially the superhero group, the X-Men. Now they must join their show enemy Magneto to survive fall. Voliner discovered that Stryker holds the key to his. Following a maintain accession attempt on the presents Colonel William Stryker incident, a war on maintain, especially the superhero group, the X-Men. Now they must join their shown enemy Magneto to survive while Volner discovered that Stryker holds that key to his Mikey past. Release date 1st May 2003. Running time 133 minutes. Certificate 12A. Original title X-Men 2. Where would X2 be without elevation? 3 years ago, general consensus had it that the first X-Men movie, while enjoyable, was some show lacking Bryan Singer that usual suspect Underdew was presently comfortable working within the big bucks Arian well. What a difference 3 years McKellen for Singer has involved, and as a result X2 one of the final. The usual suspect vacant was patently uncomfortable working within the big bag area. Well, what a difference 3 years making for Singer has evolved, and as a result X2 is one of the finest comic book movie to date, and a film that in every convention way improves upon its predecessor. Singer elevation in confirmed in the association opening sequence in which alien Cumming, teleporting night killers, attempts underduce to assist the American peasants as he bumps around movie to force for terrified Secret Service agents and the camera itself. On this in clear Singer no longer has any hang-ups about handling action, which is just as well as X2 redefined action-packed included in that both. Singer no longer has an hang-ups about handling action, which is just as well as X2 redefines action-packed including incident both larger, a successful attempt on the X mission during which Wolverine in the truthfully iconic fashion, and small a fairy conflicts at Iceman family home. Spidey can show swimming, but with a $50 million budget increase, this is the first comic book movie to really explore the potential of its hero powers. Halle Berry storm step Torridors on a pair of fighter jets in a cracking doubtful sequence. Jenny Gray's telephones expand at a frightening rate. Processor X telepathy has global convince. Singer handle the divide of the power super bill. Assist by cinematography Tom Nathan Singer and editor Compressor John. Processor X telepathy has global sequence. Singer handle the director of power cerebrally. Assist by cinematography Tom Newton Single and director editor composer John Autumn. Wo Prudent Puring gives the film real moments. 37 minutes longer than the original and Singer needs every second of it. For there a lot to cram in. Amazing throw Singer avoids the too many cooks. For there a lot to cram in. Amazing throw Singer avoids the too many cooks. Snare drum that to trains the Britain film, while at the same time giving pretty much everyone save Jameson Madison's Clappo sadly something magnificent to do. Jackson Wolverine is again very much the focal point and the huge chemistry ascension convey Logan growing anger and confusion about his shady woe past. Yet he is able spotted by the likes of Phoenix Jackson. Stable period in Jackson's struggle with her Brooding powers Rebecca Johnson having all sort of funds in beef up a role as Master Q and the Old Stranger. Of Mimiki Jason Stubbly Prioting Jason struggle with her brooding powers, Rebecca Rimogen Stemmons having all sort of fun in a beef up role as Master Q and the Old Strangers McKellen and Stewart, and the newcomers don't disappoint. Either Aaron Stamford is all Rebecca J as the tormented Triona Pure Brain Co-Staker is no furious that he enabled that audience to temporarily sympathy with Lon McLean's Magneto and coming night cruise is a delicate. X2 is also processed of emotional complexity that won't surprise comic fans but will delight conventions of the summer blockbuster. This film wears its heart on its sleeves, be it Warner's again search for his past, which kick off a chilling. X2 is also possessed of an emotional complexity that would surprise comic fans, but it will delight conventions of the summer blockbuster. This film wears its heart on its sleeves, which kicks off with a chilling conversation with his creator, the Elvis Stickle, and which take in a switch crops with Kelly Hughes similarity Claude a Lady Dance. The picnic sequence in which Liceman come out to his family or Magneto Corporation's influence upon the X-Men. The plot in which Heritator of minority group theaters to spark a global war is frankly topical, and Singer does not blink from showing that resolution after a better price. Alibility 1 passed the way for a personality invasion X3. X2 is also possessed of an emotional man complexity that won't surprise comic fans but will delicate conversation of the summer blockbuster. This film wears its heart on its sleeve. Be it Voliners again search for his past, which kicks off a chilling convention with his creator, the evil Staker, and which stuck in a swag trap with Kelly Hughes similarity Claude Lady Deathless. The begin sequence in which Iceman come out to his family or Magneto Corporation influence upon the X-Men. The plot in which Heritator of a minority group theaters to spark a global war is frankly topical, and Singer does not flinch from showing that resolution often come at a better price. Alibert 1 which packs the way for a pleasing invention X3. Yet it not all FX. Argument never exing. Though it does not very dark, X2 is ensemble entertain which covered pleasing moments of Greek, the presence of mental skin muscles man closer in the full around. From should benefits unholstered everywhere and non-speak are night crows led mid-air. Rescue is exhalations alike. There also a very welcome sense of humor, constantly of fine script by relevant newcomers Mike Driotti and Dane Harris, who managed to balance multiple storytelling while maintaining continuity from the first movie. There are problem the third act saga a light under the sheer weight of storytelling while come of the explanation. There are problem the third act saga a little under the sheer weight of storyline while some of the explanation dialogue is a title heavy, however its thought provoking styling and stylish flick has opened the summer of superhero in its final style. The Matrix Reloaded may have better effect and the Hugh may be more eye-catching, but as an overall package, X2 is going to be hard to top. During shooting, Singer constantly referred to the Empire Strikes Back as the telepathy, and he's made a movie that worthy of its comparison. On its own, tempers through it's a truly green general sequence. X2 X-Men United 2003. You may recall that I was not a big fan of the original movie. While it is far from the roast movie I have ever seen, I never really got into the film characters or storytelling all that much. Kinda bland compared to other superhero movies that made a huge impact in the real or filmmaking, and it's shame because I have a hunch that the X-Men in the comic are possibly more engaging and interesting. Seeing as now we are taking a look at the second installment of the X-Men franchise titled X2, can this movie change my mind into believing that the X-Men are anything other than bland? If you remember my review of X-Men 2000, you may recall that I was not a big fan of the original movie while it is far from the roast movie I have ever seen. I never really got into the film characters or storytelling all the character much. It just felt kinda bland compared to other superhero movies that made a huge impact in the reclaiming of filmmaking, and it's a shame because I have a huge that the X-Men in the comic are possibly more engaging or interesting. Seeming as now we are taking a look at the second installment of the X-Men franchise titled X2, can this movie change my mind into believing that the X-Men are several months after the events of the first X-Men movie? Night Cleaver is found seeking around the White House to assist the President of the United States. This sets off a chain of events with Volunteers being set off to discover his past and Mento escaping his person. However, when a new theater's named Stryker captures Charles Xavier for his power, it's up to the rest of X-Men to fighting back and bring their teachers back to school. Sadly, some of the complaints I had with the original movie story can be said once again with this story. This story takes itself way too seriously, which is not entirely a bad thing, but the problem is that it does not allow the characters or the film story to have all that much personality or flair. Sadly, some of the complaints I have with the original movie story can be said once again with this story. The story takes itself way too seriously, which is not entirely a bad thing. But the problem is that it does not allow the characters or their film story to have that much personality or flair. The world building in some cases feels restricted at point, and the new location we get to visit don't leave that much of an impact in that long run. Something the movie introduced different plot threads and characters delimate that often that not feel pointless and are Russians thought to get to another part of the story. I know you may feel like I am being too harsh on the story, but comic book movie have come such a long way that I was accepting something more along the lines of what we get in comic book movie today. While I respect that the movie and is respectful for brightening comic book movie into the light lines as a perfectable ideas, I still can't bring myself to say that this was any fun or interesting of superhero movie. The characters are sadly not any more interesting than they were before, even deposit from of the having the potential to the explore movie with interesting subplots or black stories. Hugh Jackman still does his best job at playing villains, and while he is good, I felt like his characters could have used a title more depth and understanding to make him a full-fledged roundly characters. Protects the War and Lon McKellen are obviously great in their roles as Charles Xavier and Magneto as their. The characters are sadly not any more interesting than they were before, even deposit of them having the potential to be explored more the interesting subplots or backstories. Hugh Jackman still does his best job at playing Boliner, and while he is good, I felt like his characters could have used a title fully rounded characters. Patrick Stewart and Lon McKellen are obviously great in their roles as Charlie Xavier and Magneto, as their commitment to playing comic book characters are evident in their performance. The rest of the X-Men characters such as Storm and Cyclops are unfortunately not any better here as they were last time. The performances are not awful but they are sadly monotone, making them boring and almost like every other series characters you have ever met in a movie. Speaking of boring, the main antagonist this time is incredible, confusing and complicated as he does not leave a memorable impression unlike Magneto from the last movie. I want to love these characters while some of them are doing their best. I felt like the majority of them did not capture my installment all that much. The cinematography can honestly be a slight step from the previous film, but that is not saying much. The visual of the school still bring that lifeless and dull grey and brown look that gets rather boring after a while. Like before, I would have performed that this movie tried to look a title more colorful and vibrant. Like the comic book counterpart, still I will give credit that there are some cool action sequences such as the one Voliners has. The cinematography can honestly be a slight step from the previous film, but that is not saying much. The visuals of the school still bring that lifeless and dull grey and brown look that gets rather boring after a while. Like before, I would have performed that this movie tried to look a title much more colorful and vibrant like the comic book concept. Still, I will give credit that there were some cool action sequences such as the one Polliners has with Yoiko, but even those action scenes were not enough to make the cinematography any more interesting. The music was composed by John Ottman, who would go on to score the music for the Fantastic Four movie. Sadly, even though Ottma is going his best, the score just could not live up to the excitement and fun that should come from a superhero film. The only bit of music I did like though was the opening scenes with Night Crew where they play Morticia Review. I did like though was the opening scenes with Night Crew where they play Motriza Rikyu. Other than that though, the score seemed pretty standard to me. Many people love this sequel even more than its predecessor, while I can say there were a few minutes in this movie that did not bring more excitement and fun. The rest of everything else in this movie just felt like more of the same what we got in the last movie with underdevelopment characters and some underwhelming cinematography. I thought that X-Men 2 would change things up and bring more of the comic book movie magic that I have seen in other modern superhero flicks. This movie has plenty of fans, some even say it's. Many people love this sequel even more than its predecessor, while I can say there were a few minutes in this movie that I did not bring more excitement and fun. The rest of everything else in this movie just felt like more of the same that we got in the last movie with underdevelopment characters and some underwhelming cinematography. I thought that X2 would change things up and bring more of the comic book movie magic that I have seen in other modern superhero flicks. This movie has plenty of fans. Some even say it's better than the last movie. I fortunately say that this movie is just underwhelming as it's for. I unfortunately say that this film is just underwhelming as it was before, and it's gonna take a lot more effort and care to make me interesting in the X-Men franchise. Review X2 X-Men Unity 2003. Director Bryan Singer. Screenplay Daniel Plee, Harris, David Hayter, Zach Penn, Bryan Singer. 133 minutes. Starting. Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman, Ian McKellen, Fim Jensen, James Madison, Rebecca Romijn, Storm, Brian Cox, Elian Cumming, Bruce Davison, Anna Piccione, Kelly Hu, Arun Stanford, Siobhan Ashmore, Cotter Smith. MPAA rating PG-13. For SCIV action volumes, some security and bright laughing. Rue written movie soundtrack review. The focus of evil are no match of the machinery of man who hated for mutants is unparalleled. The sequel to the popular comic book movie X-Men is here and this time is even better. Back for a second dose of X-Men action, Hugh Jackman leads the all-star cast at the Trouble Mutant Wolverines. After discovering in this first movie that he was created as a secret research faculty, he brings X2 trekking through the wilderness to the faculty on to find the building crumbling to the ground. Digit he returns to Professor Xavier, Patrick Stewart, Merton School. There he finds his romantic interest Jan Grey. Back for a second dose of X-Men action, Hugh Jackman leads the all-star cast as the Trouble Mutant Volunteers after discovering in the first film that he was created at a secret research faculty, he being X2 traveling through the wilderness to the faculty on the fine building crumbling to the ground. Digit he returns to Professor Xavier. Mitten school, there he finds his romantic interest Jane Grey has fallen in love with rival Mitten's Clappo. Also along for the ride is weather controlling Storm, Oscar winner Halle Berry and power streaming Ryuch Anna Piol, appearing in the first film Briefy but playing a larger part here a body type as Ryuch's boyfriend and their McLuhan classmate Pior. Retrying prisoner Magneto Oscar nominee Sir Ian McKellen remain in his plastic cell, White Cameron Mosquito, research for way to get the cooperative out of prison impassioned Senator Robert Kelly, whose death in the first movie led to an interesting setup for the sequel with characters Sabretooth and Tooth Kelly of in the first film. The villainous side of the cast seems disheartened. Not to worry, a more evil character is about to make life hell for the mutants at Xavier School. General William Stryker, played Excellent by Brian Cox, has come up the upland to British other mutants into surviving his nervous calls, including the raid on Xavier School, where he plans to capture any mutants he can and take control of the Professor's powerful Gabo device used to locate. Other mutants into surviving his nervous calls included a raid on Xavier School, where he plans to capture any mutants he can and take control of the Professor's powerful Cerebro device used to locate mutants around the world and so powerful that Xavier could kill anyone he deserts. In this instance, we are introduced to two new mutants to seen in previous film only play the part of Strike, personal assistant Yoriko Oima, but whose true nature is revealed much later in the film. The other is a god-faking teleport. Whole mind and ability are used in a while cinematography opening sequence while he assists the White House, nearly killing the presidents with a knife carrying a. In this instance, we are introduced to two new men not even seen in previous film. One plays the part of Strike personal assistant Yoriko Oima, but whose true nature is revealed much later in the film. The other is a good-faring teleport, whose mind and ability are used in a well-crafted opening sequence while he assaults the White House, nearly killing the president's with a knife carrying a slogan requesting the freedom of the mutants. These piteous creatures find his way back to his home where he eventually gains the audience of Storm and Jean Grey. Network Crew is the name he is given himself and his power are muscles and coming from film fits him all the better. Where the original X-Men success X2 X-Men United improves with an amazing where the original X-Men success X2 X-Men United improve with an amazing cast, a complex and interesting plot and a terrific directed job by Bryan Singer. X2 is not only better than the original, it's better than any Marvel comic book movie to date and second only to Mutant Brilliantly Dark Batman. Jackman were Wolverine's skin like the comic book had been written around Jackman. His gruff and indelible passion make him a sympathetic and outstanding anti-hero. Stewart Lykel's take Professor Xavier to level that only he could, blending his telepathy everyone around him, Cumming is absolutely bright, giving one of his best performances to date, and Cox play his role so satisfying that you truly depth him by the film conclusions. The remainder of the cast does an admirable job, but a few notable executions need to be mentioned. Baekhyun was Oscar-winning Trion in 1993. The Piona was a breakthrough role, but she has never been worse than in the two X-Men films. The blending set the truthfully Rose performance in the film comics for the modern Wood romantic interest show nary and emotions and forces the audience to wonder what Dr. Gray sees in him. Screenwriter Daniel P. Hairstabit, hater Zach, Penny and Singer have created a more rewarding and installment plot than original. With the necessary character development deposit of X-Men, X2 has the opportunity to use minimal exporting and get directly to the story. Screenwriter Daniel P. Harris David, Hyder, Zach Penn, and Singer have created a more rewarding and installment plot and the original. With the necessary characters development deposit of in X-Men, X2 has the opportunity to use minimal exposing and get directly to the story, taking integral character stories and interwriting them in the narrative of film. While we learn some of what Nectar Crew in is the first few scenes of the film, we learn nothing of this trio being until later in the film. Likewise, we learn much of Stryker's personal history in the latter half of the film, when we can finally understand why this watched person has gone to such great length to destroy mankind. X2 is a truth game casting its light into a otherwise pearly film season. Audience, X2 is a truthy game casting its light into an otherwise pearly film season. Audience will certainly enjoy the heart-pounding edge of your seat excitement Singer and company deliver. They will become emotionally attached to the people on the screen, celebrate the ultimate consolations and drown in the snowfall aftermath with other brilliant step for the third installment. Audience will barely be able to control their application for X3. X-Men 2 4K Blu-ray review. Have you ever tried not being a maintain? Now sporting the Marvel logo, X-Men 2 arriving 3 years after the original, but only a few months in terms of film time, remapped up the perennial race these Turks and, in effect, do everything that was great about the first film and turned it up to 11. The story his time around is about a Roji army sent using maintain fear to push his agents forward. However, actual goal is the influence. Why his own son maintains Professor Xavier to kill all the maintains with his telepathic ability by continue on from the first film in narrative terms, even though it's a completely different antagonist and story. Singer and his team remapped up the action and crucially stuck to produce a sequel that is every bit as good, if you better the original. The characters have developed, get to do a little more this time around. Wall especially gets to show off his bad side, while maintains on either side of the debut, but their difference aside for their continuous survival. Sequel that is very bit as good, if not better than the original. The characters had developed and get to do a little more this time around. Voliner especially gets to show off his bad side, while maintains on either side of the debut, but their different side for their continuous survival. Their groundwork is set for the next installment, and there is genuine emotion felt for the characters and their plight, particularly when one is lost. With a biggest budget, more characters, and a sleeker, more emotion storyline, X2 is very nearly the perfect film, and certainly the highlight of the X-Men franchise, as it has never quite reached these drizzling heights since deposit reboots, rewriting history and youthful turns. X-Men 2 4K pictures quality. X-Men 2 was shot using Passion's Panflex Minimum XL and Action 35-3 cameras on 30mm film and has recently been scanned at 4K resolution, which has been used here for this Ultra HD Blu-ray release. The disc presents a native 4K 3840x 2160p resolution imaging in the widescreen 2.39.1 aspect ratio and use 10-byte video depth, a wider color gamut, high dramatic range, and is uncovered using the Hyvik code for HDVR10. He received the reaction-free UK Ultra HD Blu-rays film of X-Men 2 on a 65DX 902B Ultra HD 4K TV with a Prison DMP UB400 Ultra HD Blu-ray player. The new scene has really polished the already terrified Blu-ray image. There is a note-capable upturn in detail, right from close-up skin extra. Both Sirloin and Cerebro have some extreme close-ups, to disclaimer clothing waves to snow, sweet landscape scope keep instruction. There are being ended throughout. Check out the leather in the Oval Office or of Magneto Globe. The grace is Bobby Garden of a maintains backdrop to a kill base. There is a note-capable upturn in detail, right from close-up skin textures. Both Sirloin and Cerebro have some extreme close-ups, to disclaimer clothing waves to snow, sweet landscape to closing interviews. There are keep added throughout. Check out the leather in the Oval Office or of Magneto gloves, the grass in Bobby Garden on the motivations backdrop to the Achille base. HDR and the VCG really add to the image. The premise really push the pictures red and orange of Priofig attack on the police jet post to the lush greenery of the garden. Flash tones take on all new nature glow, while Caplo options blasting the screen. The green blue of her space, especially in the Tribune room, in Terrify also blue of natural inhabit Xavier is forced to wear. But for sheer glory, check out the first time in Cerebro looking for the humans and maintains or the long. Inside the characters before capturing cut, depth of frame is expanded due to the Terrebonne black level. Ending punch and verve the image contain more shadow detail. Tremudo black level, ending push and where to the image continue more shadow details when required. But it is with the wide and up of the scale they really push the pictures out of the screen, highlight just pop. Digitally there are no issue and source is clean and bright. Green is kept well, excepting in some of the snower scenes when it grew just a little. Opening scenes mainly just to remind you that we are watching film. X-Men 2 4K sound quality. Unfortunately, the disc has not been upgraded. The impressive soundtrack, so no Dolby Atmos or DTX. What we do have in the same DTS HDMA 5.1 track that adorned the previous release. Again, it's no slosh throw effects. Again, it's no slosh throw with effects coming thick and fast when needed. Unfortunately, the disc has not been upgraded to the impressive soundtracks, so no badly atoms or DTX. What we do have in the same DTX HDMA f.5 track that adorned the previous release. Again, is no slow through the with effect coming thick and fast when needed. Kurt's attack on the Oval Office is a rival master with the ghosters and his teleporting around the room. Bass is deep and strong fill out effect when needed. Storm thunders obviously what we Jan. Stop Scott blast under the dam. And the subsequent collapse is simply awesome. The score is well layered into the mix and makes use of all the speakers, while dialogue sound very naturally, given directly and never lost in the rhythm. All the extreme come from the previously available Blu-ray but not all. The second extreme disc included with the original reels is not here, leaving this film particularly spare. UHD audio commentary with Bryan Singer and Tom Single is a chatty affair with plan of background informations or character steps, production story and themes. Audio commentary with Lawrence Lurer Donner, Ripley Winter, Michael Daughter, Dan Harris and David Hatter continues Stimmel chat but from a different angle, perhaps not quite to engage. Audio commentary the same too as above trailer. X-Men 2 is a smashing sequel, easily matching the original and in most cases surpassing it. Its story is larger in scope, more emotions, has more characters, a sleeper script, bigger budget and all-around super pump performance. Singer ramps up the tension, preneur, and action to produce a film in the franchise that has yet to be Topi maintains joint forces. Some are lost and there is genuine emotion felt for their plight, and all the while this next film in the franchise is being set up perfect. The set from Fox is mostly great. The native 4K pictures is terrific. The detail has a notable upturn, but HDR and WCG really add to the image. The color pop, the blacks are imagines, and the white pop, all the vibrations. The film look a real shame. The soundtrack is the villain. DCS HDMA 5.1 that adorns the previous Blu-ray release, even though it's a remarkable in odds the right in terms of emissions and bass. Extreme for this film are very limited as the second Blu-ray included with the original setup is not here. But you as a fan of audio comments you said you get to. The Scope 2003 PG-13 directed by Bryan Singer and starring Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart and Lon McKellen. Tagline: The time has come for those who are different to stand united. Summary capsule: Good men's, bad men's, and ugly humans are ready to kiss as and new show bubbling, and they are all out and come. Just in waiting. See, I thought iron in your diet was supposed to be good for you, but that show how much I know. Just a review. As a teen boy, my brother and I went through a pass where we collected X-Men comic books. I think all teen boys do this as a way to stuff off the grooving instantly. Just a review. As a teen boy, my brothers and I went through a pace. We have collected X-Men comic books. I think all teen boys do this as a way to stuff off the growing instant that the female princess occasion, and it held for a month and a half. Unfortunately, since X-Men comic graphic book novels have been around since the Little Middle Ages, it was pretty tough to be keep track of what was going on. There are about 1,000 different characters, and funny you think I am joking about this furious crossover storytelling, alternative universe, reimagining etc. To keep track of it's a huge crazy universe that blow way out of accessibility to anyone but the. There are about 1,000 different characters, and funny you think I am joking about this, with various crossover storytelling, alternative universe, reimagination etc. To keep track of it's a huge crazy universe that blow out of accessibility to anyone but the most hardcore X-freak, which is why it's fortunate that we have the new X-Men movie as a simple way to get adjust to his world. If you are looking for a black and white struggle between a superhero and a supervillain, look Elvis, perhaps in the Toxic Avengers section of your local video library. Rather than lame X-Men in with Batman Spider-Man crowd, I am more comfortable with a comparison to the old Greek pantheon. If you are looking for a black and white struggle between a superhero and supervillain, look elsewhere, perhaps in the Toxic Avengers section of your local video library. Rather than lamp X-Men in with the Batman Spider-Man crowd, I am more comfortable with a comparison to the old Greek pantheon of gods. Zeus, Harpentine, Neptune and the rest and around, enjoying their immortal status and increased power, but we otherwise just the same as normal people. They fought and around with each other, were as the petty as the nude guy, and they weren't close to achievement any sort of peaceful perfection that one might normally association with powerful digits. The Greek used their gods to tell morality play in a grain formula, the same way that X-Men. Powerful digits. The Greek used their gods to tell morality play in a grain forma, the same way that X-Men Christian Lee used his powerful maintains to highlight the all-too-human issue of rhythm, prediction, and loving one enemies, or rather trying to blow one enemy head off with a plasma beam of some sort. I love the first X-Men movie as well as X2 X-Men United director Bryan Singer along with his writer brought a balance to force. X-Men is not grotty but is not without a sense of charm and humor either. It's a blended mix of fantastical power and genuine humanity. We learned that merely possessing superpower does not make you Alvord, it just gives you more lessons to blow stuff up and call collect using 1.800 call 8 without remorse. X2 picks up the storytelling from the first film with the ever-wise Professor Xavier and his merry band of X-Men still steamed at the ever-irritable Magneto, Serlan McKellen and his anti-human Brotherhood of Mutants. Since a sequel must by law because we are introduced to third faction. General Stryker is a military madman but quanti-human who is bent on capturing, controlling, and the reading than the earth of the mundane problem forever. Hate and fever drive human against mundane and mundane against fellow mutant until the ashes settle and ethical grazy zone immigrates. Ashes settle and ethel grazy zone immigrates. We can sympathetic with each side, seeing the justification for each of their action. But we also don't let any deeper throw get in the way of some midness and funvoliness. The X-Men universe double in size in X2 in terms of main characters and storytelling, which is a shame because so many good characters are fighting over now similar pieces of maintained PIA. For example, everyone I have talked with about X2 always mention with Adithism Colossus a bodybuilder due to when cover his body in steel armor. A mere 10 seconds was all it took be to incredible cool in a way that an interior house however with Helen Bear and White Wig never could. Our problem is not that the filmmakers did not give us enough great movie to chew, it's just that they did not have enough time to go into as much detail as well, like on each and everything, but better to be left. Everything but better to be left wanting more than to be bought with skimpy material, so no complaints here. Two characters stole the show for me, not no Logan, aka Voliner the fella with cheeses, shadows in between his knuckles. Also people waiting to see Volvia cut loose are treated to near R-rated scenes of physicians slashing and slaughter, though Art Login is a fan favorite. I was wowed by an even better Magneto performance this time around. McKellen gives complexity to a bad character you can really want to like. Magneto starred the film he is and in the first movie helped as a Newton and Declan, baby kitten but like Hannibal Lecter. Baby kitten but like Hannibal Lecter, he decides his time until opportunity comes to unleash his fury. Say what you will Bill about Magneto not getting the moral high road, at least the man behind the metal gets things done and much more thoroughly than the mostly burbling X-Men. Fortunately, the good guys get a new ally in Night Cruise. A polyester wearing blue skinned angel to pad pointly tailed teleporting Cheston of sorts. Dracula accent Night Crawl is usual is that he is a humble guy in a comic book movie where even the women have enough testosterone to kill a cow and everyone ready to duck it out at the more without of insult. A claimant more gentle maintain immediately stands. Gentle maintain immediately stands out and enters himself to us. Plus he gets my vote for cluster superpower visual effect popping around the place like Scotty drunk at the teleport counters leaving proof of Volinant's bond behind. Winning the Druth Marvel Award is the new Betty. Lady Deathsticker she fulfilled the part of Valentine Machine. William who stuck around is brought out for key battle and is told to keep her mouth stuck. I have always preferred to bodies. We can be evil in both speech and action, but you can get I guess. X2 only makes me sad when I consider how hard an inference it will be to continue the series. Like I felt with the X2 only makes me sad when I consider how hard an inference it will be to continue the series. Like I felt with the first movie, they hit a goldman here that combined action, superhero mythology and grimmer humor into a Palpable hit for most everyone. They're most of everything the second time around, included to get issue and deeper characters development, and that makes a borderline spectacular effect that will not soon be established by singular comic book film heroes. Replace Magneto with a 22nd era cruelly monster villain and you have the perfect movie. Neha X2 presents itself as a girl you always found cute during high school but comes donated for great night looking like a goddess. Keep in mind, I'm not admiring attraction for Hugh Jackman, at least not one clever level, but just try to point over something fantastic. The first X-Men movie was great fun and worthy of the name. The second X-Men movie blew me away and has leapt the series up miles on my Greek motor. There is so much to like about this movie, I don't know where to begin. There is so much to like about this movie, I don't know where to begin, finally fitting itself from the necessary evil of the original story. X2 gets a chance to tell its own late in its one way. As much as I enjoy my first glimpses of characters in the first movie, are we calling that X-Men now? The mere fact that we already know we most of characters are finally takes the trying while of the franchise and lets it rip. The whole movie is bigger, better and free air in every respect. What really makes X-Men powerful as a story is the fact that every character has his or her weakness in one form or another. Puro require a plot line to work his magic and even the stable. What really makes X-Men powerful as a story is the fact that every character has his or her weakness in one form of another. Puro require a plot line to work his magic and invere the stable. Upwriting to Iceman, Magneto in a plastic prize is a helpless old man, but he also a prisoner of his own conventions. Iceman freezer power takes some convention and he honored up something fierce. Unlike Superman, woman's dramatic problem was that he automatically more powerful than nearly everything he ever come up against. The X-Men have wolves all over the place. They are not only gods among men, as Magneto would insert, but men among men, as the professor holds. What makes the premise interesting is not necessary the old nickel can be, it's the humanity of the story. And what a story it is, I have to hand it to them. I really like this revenating of X-Men universe. Gone seemingly are the comic grounded relationships between Night Crew and Masterpiece in a much as it looked like we are about to see the next passes of John Gray processor. It merciful look as the Thor comic clone as Alien are not going to be involved. The key to the conflict like the complex relationship between Pro X and Magneto are presents while the fulfill that was used to push zone of X comic of Marvel drawn fit years ago are gone. Thanks goodness we don't need a soap opera. And what a story it is, I have to hand it to them. I really like this renovating of X-Men universe gone seemingly are the comic grounded relationship between Nightcrawlers and Master Q in as much as it looks like we are about to see the next perhaps of Jenny Crew. Possession its merciful look as the Thor comic clone and aliens are not going to be involved. The key to the conflict like the complex relationship between Pro X and Magneto are present while this stuff that was used to push Zone of X comic out of Marvel drones 15 years ago are gone. Thanks goodness, we don't need to soap opera. Incidentally, I can't tell you what it's mean to me to finally watch Woliner get his claws dirty. Hugh Jackman did a fine job of playing Bull as a goof but lovable crumble the first time out, but letting him play with the wilder, dark side of Logan is a welcome addition. Woliners go through red shirt, Williners did record time with the impeccable get and style, which just goes to show you how well cast he was. And once again, the group around him comes through. All the cast who repaired their previous roles are as good as ever, particularly Sri Lanka McKellen continued to strong portrayal of Magneto. The person escape is brutal and powerful, and just give you the chief watching. It's the new edition of Sticker, Yoriko, and Jensen. Maintain 143, a unique blend of mastermind with a hint of legend from the book. are all sparkly strong, all thought I agree with. J.K. Detran was woefully understand. Perhaps best of all is Alien Coming, turns add neater crew, who proves that a sulfur room deterrence is key to survive. Watching him born from space to space is we teleport while kicking ass in new way, even new still dreams about in just bombing in your seat fun. The X-Men series is doing the unthinkable in turn with Spider-Man, Deeply in turn with Spider-Man, Daredevil, and so many other memorable favorite is making the word see why Greek always found the comic so cool. The X-Men series is doing the unthinkable in turn with Spider-Man, Travel, and so many other memorable favorite is making the word see why us Greek always found the comic so cool. Our acceptance is validated thanks Bryan Singer. Calorie rating is this great gentle loyalty is full force typing. Kelly review. Like most of the masterpiece maintained of the X universe, I look just as moral as you and your friends. They are those of us who dress greatly and pose purely in the order to pollution grandly to impress. Like most of the materials maintained of X universe, I look just as normal as you and your friends. There are those of us dressed greatly and face purely in order to pontificate grandly to impress girl, but most of us just keep our secret to universe and you did never realize the truth universe. But most of us just keep our secret to you follow us to the comic store. That right, I am a comic book junk. Or at least I was. When I was a kid, I really went nuts with comic books, especially Spider-Man and X-Men and Batman, and I just follow whatever Grant Morrison writes more on the latter. However, once a comic junk, always a comic junk, and that means I have remembered particularly every plot point and character's twist there was, it is for. And character's twist there was is for the expanded that affect my enjoyment of the movie. Somewhat while that affect yours. Probably not unless you run into me later and I start over explaining everything. I don't always mean to be elegant about the Thos comic book movie. These Marvel comic adaptations are fantastic and probably certificates the greatest possible number of people, die-hard fans and civilians alike. My point is more that while these two X films are very professional and highlight praising, if you are interested in more of these characters, story hit the comic story and get some of these straight back, especially one of by mission to seek the X-Men go nuts in with unlimited budget and creative ideas. See them in space, see them defeat world ending means, see them crewed in the New York's verse. If you can read and have an attention span, give comic a try. Sorry, my little major submissions force me to encourage reading. Teach your children well people that public service out of the way. X2 is a great extension of the cinematic X-Men and their friends and forces, especially if you like the first film. Every man characters included new ones like Night Crew and Lady Deaths gets at least one sign of absolutely clones where they maintain that public service out of the way. X2 is a great extension of cinematic X-Men and their friends and forces, especially if you like the first film. Every main characters included new ones. I like Nitro and Lady Darker gets at least one of scene of the absolutely clones where the maintains power are used to man great stuff like Justin mentioned. Magneto really comes across a seductive and powerful characters. If you were on the cusp of deciding whatever to be a superhero or supervillain with is one source of guardians you would not want to contact. It really feels like a middle chunk setting up things between the first film and the next one, but not as badly as certain what films occasions. Matrix Reloaded catch still if you want. Matrix Reloaded catch. Still, if you want another helping of maintained superpower action, X2 is a great way to go. Summer movie fun alive. Lisa Redding. I wish I had a cool maintained power. Lisa review. It was a dearly unexpected Friday evening in many decades were away from a business trip and I was absolutely excited, so I plopped on the couch, thinking that maybe I did pop in a DVD But the 10 feet seemed an immoral distance to walk, a guilty voice that sounded a lot like the had maintained. Well, not really. Plopped on the couch, think that maybe I'd pop in a DVD, but the 10 feet seemed an enormous distance to walk, a guilty voice that sounded a lot like the had maintained. Well, not really. Told me I should be writing a review, and I was sort of in the mood to see X-Men 2 and maybe I should pop that in. I ignored it and turned on the TV and flipped to the HBO where X-Men 2, technically called X2 X-Men United, but we are kidding. We're just starting. So now that I have been giving a canned slap upside the head by God or 20 pin by, I have said it before and I will say it again. I am not a comic book reader or a comic series watcher at this since I was like 13. Maybe I am more of a cartoon watcher than I thought. But all third, my best friend in high school was really into the X-Men. I never got into the until the first movie come out. Dookie drags me to it and I think end up liking it even better than he did. What is so incredible appreciates about the X-Men is the group dynamic. It's a for carry from the League of Justice, where everyone was always happy. The key perhaps was good idea maintain. If Scott make a suggestion, Logan much more likely to heckle it, and they a few hours later after he flopped on the couch thinking that maybe I popped in a DVD, but the tan fisting seemed an incongruous distance to the walk. A guilty voice that sounded a lot like he had maintained, well, not really told me I should be writing a review, and I was sort of in the mood to see X-Men 2 and maybe I should pop that in. I ignored it and turned on the TV and flipped to be HBO where X-Men 2, technically called X2 X-Men United, but who are the Kidney was just starting. True story. So now that I have been giving a Gantt slap upside the head by God or a teeny peep by concessions, here we go. I have said it before and I will say it again. I am not a comic book reader or a comic series watcher, at least since I was like 13. The Max and Asen vlogs and animes are simply not working. Hugh, maybe I am more of a cartoon watcher than I thought. But although my best friend in high school was really into the X-Men, I never got into the until the first movie came out. Decky dragged me to it, and I think I end up liking it even better than he did. What is so incredible applying about the X-Men is the group dynamic. It's a far cry from the legal of justice where everyone was always happy and the key perhaps was good idea. Means if Scott make a suggestion, Logan much more likely to hack it and then a few hours later after he cue it over in mind, suggests it again in a slightly modified form of something it much more realistic and a lot more fun to read about because many of the X-Men are from two-dimensional. X-Men 2 is one of those a sequel that is at least as good as the original, if not better. It's got a lot going for it, which the guys above have already mentioned. Greek plot, lots of good characters, maintain powers. Hugh Jackman is black leather, decent villain, and lots of Magneto, who I think is my favorite characters. I love the relationship between Magneto and the Professor, and movie that has things that kind of complex, not so simple friendship in gets major points from the me. The acting is pretty much sold, and the younger generation does a great job as well, especially around Stewart, who plays John Slash Pure. Lots of action, tons of great characters, instructions. Logan and Bobby are pretty fun to watch too. What more can you want from a movie? My only complaint about X2 is Storm and Jean Grey. I used to think Halle Berry was being a diva for saying the would not come back next time it's Storm it don't have a bigger role. I mean Storm and tons of screen time, right? But when I was watching its last, I wonder if she might go actually have a point where the male maintains are very well finished out and fun characters. Jean Grey and Storm fall pretty flat. Yes, they have some pretty cool powers, and yes, they are not just spineless simple girls. They do kick some butt and they have the day more and then once. But their personality really David from Climb, sweet girls who teach school. They are understanding gentle crime from about their principal yada yada. And now that's great that her example role model for any young girls watching the movie. I slept. I appeared that I really like Storm touching relationship with Night Years and the way Jen walks away from Logan, but the characters lack the space and the half of Jane's lines in the movie involve her starting into peace and saying something wrong, and Storm never ever lose her temps. I mean, maybe she written to be an even person or something, but everyone gets along with her, and when you put the two themes offside, the more interesting male characters it really show up. I don't think this is a result of any mythology from those in charge. However, I mean, I like you, she will I like you, she will develop an interesting and Mistake got a lot of great screen time and even some characters development beyond shape shifting, not much but one. I think more the problem is there too many mutants. I don't think this is a result of any mythology of those in change. However, I mean, I like Ryuch. She well developed and interesting and multiple got a lot of great screen time and even some characters development beyond shame shifting. Not much but some. I think more the problem is there too many maintains and not enough time, and that just not really feasible, I guess. Throughout giving how major a part Jane had in this movie, I would have liked the title last time with Harry saying fake something wrong and a little more thing with her actually saying something with substance. But overall, yes, X-Men 2 is a great flick and I am so ready for X3. Of course, X is already can be taken as title. Her saying Fugo something wrong and a little her saying Fugo something wrong and a little more time with her actually saying something with the substance. But overall, yes, X-Men 2 is a great flick and I am so ready for X3. Of course, XXS has already been taken as a title, but still. Mistake you big hacking scene into Darkness Computer has a whole bunch of other character reference it seems to only the X-Men but other Marvel franchises. Yesterday we went through the list of names she pulled up on the screen during the movie while trying to find Magneto locations. Keen observer will throw managed to find more reference throw on the other screen while she bright up the Careful file. Listen, there are file to project Wide Awake, which is the Sentinel program, a file on Omega Red, the sweet answer to Weapon X Volunteer, the Muria Iceland Mental Research Faculty home of Pretend, and his mother Moria, and lastly there is a file on Frankel Richards, the son of Reed and Sue Richards of the Fantasy Four, which is also set up at the Fox, which is acknowledged as one of the most powerful maintains in the Marvel Universe. In a sequence of channel suffering marketing, Stewart is shown on television as Jan Liu Picard in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generations. The castle used as maintained school is Hattel Castle located on Vancouver Island next to Victoria. This castle is also used on the web TV hit series similar as Lex. The castle used as maintained school is Hattel Castle located on Vancouver Island next to Victoria. The castle is also used on the web Smallville as Lex Luthor mentioned. Iceman freezer a cup of coffee demonstrates his maintain ability, but the coffee in the cup does not expand at his freezer as it should. Matter view be written in. Actually, it's possible to super cool water such that it does not expand either, but a super long significant explanation of this. Just as she added this, there currently a bit of debut going on about the scene where Bobby freezes the coffee in his mother cup to the tune of why the coffee. Just as she added this, there currently a bit of debut going on about the scene where Bobby freezes the coffee in his mother cup to the turn of why the coffee does not expand and shatter the cup like water would. Well, water in the expectation to the rule. What rule being when a liquid become a solid, it molecules gathering close together. So while water would expand and broken the cup, the coffee would enter a more compact form. In the scenes where Night Crew has to go down to rescue his 6 children, he actually there before the teleport. He is in the back until waiting for his cue. In the scene where Night Crew has to go to rescue the 6 children, he actually there before he teleport. He is in the back until waiting for his cue. Gambit and Best on the News in the bar. This make 2X movie featuring police cars that refuse to stay on the ground. Just think buying comic would help you not have to deal with women. Have you seen the cosmetic they were in the comic? Martique continue freaky fur with the Voliner fetish. Rebecca Rogen's stomach finally gets a break from her all. Rebecca Romijn's stomach finally gets a break from her all-body makeup. Go, I am Calpos, I am Insan, I am under mind control, no wait, now I am not. Of all people, Stryker is the only one who can see through masticate discuss. Stryker implies that unlike in the comic, Volner claws are the artificial, not intelligent part of his body. What should the cat be licking a full claws? Featuring police car that refuse to stay on the ground. Justin think buying comic would help you not have to deal with women. Have you seen the cosmetic they were in the comic? Mosquitoes continue her fracky first with Voliner fetish. Rebecca Romijn Stammes finally gets a brief break from her all-body makeup. I am Clapol, I am Insan. I am under mind control. No wait, no I am not. Of all people, Stryker is the only who can see through mosquito disguise. Sticker implies that unlike in the comic, Voliner gloves are artificial, not natural part of his body. But could the cat be click of Voliner gloves? Nobody comments on the brimstone smell normally associated with court transposition tricks. Apparently, a proud of liquid iron being injured into your body is perfectly safe, allowing you return to work immediately. That ship under the waves, Jolican writer in Digit No Jobless was in X2 as well. She was the Aryan girl who starred right next to Professor X in the last scene. Professor X in the last scene before he located out the window. If you are a maintained trauma looker, you know we had a good debut on the issue of the question. Could either Storm or Iceman have stopped the kind of flood that happens at the end of the movie? I think the general conception was that Iceman could not. Too little time, too much water, but Storm was less clear, could not see Stormen enough what kind either light the jet or blow back the war. Alien Cumming had to endure and 8 hours of makeup to become Nat Crew Rebecca Romijn. Alien Cumming had to endure 8 hours of makeup to become Nat Clover Rebecca Romijn. Storm makeup took look 5 hours to apply. Rebecca Romijn Thomas makeup took 5 hours to apply. The Lady Death Strikes clothes were glued to the bottom of Kelly Hughes on Finaler. She had to grow them out a bit so that clouds would fit secretly. Most of the cast were contact lensless when their maintained powers were used except Hall Berry, who found them unable to work for the extended periods of time. All her scenes were digitally enhanced, where she controlled the weather. Groovy quotes, Storm. Code can you transport in there? Nightcrawler, no, I have to see where I am going, otherwise I might up in the well. Magneto Merlor, never trust a beautiful woman, especially one who interested in you. Stryker, the tricky thing about admitation is that if you ever Magneto to process it raw, liquid from you got to keep it that way. Keep it hot because once the metal glows in dispute, but you already know that I used to think you were one of a kind. Voliner, I was wrong. Tucker, the trick thing about admixture is that if you ever Magneto to processor, it's a raw liquid from you got to keep it that way. Keep it hot because when the metal cools, it's industry buy, but you already know that I have to think you were one of a kind. Voliner, I was wrong. Storm, something anger can help you survive. Nightcrawler, so can faith. Piero, they say you are the bad guy. Magneto is that what they say. Piero, that's a rocky looking Hamlet. Magneto, that rocky looking Hamlet is the only thing protecting me from the real bad guys. Piero, you know those dangerous maintain you hear about on the news. I am the roast one. Night fears. I do not fear them, I pity them. You know why? Some people will never know beyond what they can see with their own eye. Piero, after the plan roll over, don't do it again. Logan, I agree. Magneto, but will these people ever learn to fly? Mr. Drake, have you ever tried not being a maintain? Professor X to Pierrot. The next time you feel like showing off, don't. Present Magna, how did you get this? Professor X, let's just say I know a little girl who can walk through walls. That why not say in a disco all the time, look like everyone else. Mosquito because we should not have to. Policeman, but the new dawn and get on the ground. Logan, I can't. Night travel. My name is a good banger, but in the machine careers I was known as the incredible night travel. Night travel, my name is a cute banger, but in the machine careers I have known as the incredible night travel. Wait a second, who the hell is the guy? Night clever, I am a code banger, but in the great world of circle, they storm, interpreting, Shah is our teleport. Professor X, Iraq, what have you done? Magneto, I am sorry, Charles, I don't help it. Professor X, what you do? Toll Stacker, Magneto, everything. Mr. Dark, what exactly do you teach? Professor Logan. Mr. Dark, what exactly do you teach? Professor Logan, Polynar Art. Storm about night clover scars. What are they? Night clover, they are an angelical love passed down to the human race by the archical garbage. Storm, how many? Night clover, one of every sun, so quite a few. Sergeant, kill everyone that approach, even if it is me. Magneto, you are a good woman. Don't let anyone tell you any different. Rioch. Notice Magneto and Mosquito laughing quietly at her. Magneto, we love that you have done with your hair. Xavier, Logan, my dislike from your smoking not resisting continue to smoke in here and I will have you spend the rest of your life believing you are a 6-year-old girl. Logan, you do that. Xavier, I have a gene pad your hair. If you like this movie, try this X-Men. If you like this movie, try this X-Men, Spider-Man, Daredevil. The Last Stand's biggest the twist was never explained. The X-Men comics features many different stories and teams working together to protect the world from various theaters. However, after the side of publications issue that bring the franchise continue into questions are almost graduated to crop up. The same applies to the X-Men film release from 2000 to 2020, especially with one particular scene from 2006 X-Men The Last Scene. X-Men Comics features many different story and drums working together to protect the world from various theaters. However, after the side of publications issue that bring the franchise continue into questions are almost graduated to crop up. The same applies to X-Men film release from 2000 to 2020, especially with one particular scene from 2006 X-Men. The last question are almost graduated to crop up. The same applies to X-Men film release from 2000 to 2020, especially with one particular scene from 2006 X-Men The Last Stand. In the film, Professor X pays by particle Stewart in Frost to face his gravest mistake in the form of Jam Carrey, played by Fake Jensen, and her transformation into the Dark Phoenix after years of keeping Jan's insurmountable physics power at bay. They manifested as a dark personality that mirrored her counterpart in the comics. However, one massive difference between the two occurs halfway through The Last Stand. Jan kills the professor in their childhood audience. Jane kills the professor in her childhood home. Audience saw this. However, one massive difference between the two occurs halfway through The Last Stand. Jan kills the professor in the childhood. Audience saw this at the end of Professor X, but his history did not finish there. Update by Jordan Locobit on 20 September 2024. The X-Men franchise is poised to make a massive return in the Marvel Cinematic Universe thanks to upcoming films like Avengers, Secret Wars. Their forthcoming project offer an exacting opportunity for the X-Men franchise to resolve survivor unanswered questions, included one stemming back to The Last Stand. X-Men The Last Stand killed characters Xavier in dark. X-Men The Last Stand killed characters Xavier in dramatic fashion. When X-Men debuted in 2000, superhero films were not the sure thing they are today, even the modern Marvel box office troubles. If a movie was successful enough to turn into a blockbuster film franchise, the characters were usually limited to a prelude. This was both because successful actors usually wanted to move on to different work. Some actors who played a role for too long in the industry eyes were not effort film roles. In his mentor making it so Steven release he had casting director telling him they did not want caption pictures in their film. While these movies were rewarding for him professionally and personally, he likely was not against being killed off. Dramatically, the post-credit scene made it possible that his version of Xavier could continue. When X-Men First Class debuted as a soft reboot of the X-Men franchise, going back in the time allowed filmmaker to visit characters. This included keeping Hugh Jackman Logan in the mix with a cameo appearance that did not upon the canon and made for a hilarious moment in the film. X-Men Days of Future Past in one of the best love story across from the highest of the Marvel comic series. Filmmaker to visit characters. This included keep Hugh Jackman logging in the film with a cameo appearance that did not upon the canon and made for a hilarious moment in the film. X-Men Days of Future Past in one of the best love story across from the highest of the Marvel comic series popularity and allows the fan to have a happy ending for the first X-Men cast while leaving plenty of room to tell new stories with the younger version. Yet what Professor X did to survive X-Men The Last Stand is a very high concept superpowers. What happened to Professor X after his death? The Last Stand post-credit scene reveals that Charlie Xavier survived. Of all the universe plot twists that X-Men film, Oscar the biggest was the after credit scene in The Last Stand because these were not comic in 2006. The scene relieved that Xavier survived by transaction his connections into the mind of Cometo Man introduced earlier in the movie. Mac Taggart, played by Olivia Williams, discovered the secret behind Professor X's survival. And while a line earlier in the film explained the idea, the mystery of the Xavier written in never expand in any survive way. In this sequence, Logan comes face to face with Professor X and questions how he survived. Xavier responded with a callback to the first X-Men film starting Yuri, not the only with gifts. That lone statement would be the only explanation for his restaurant for survival years. There was never a chance to visit Professor X granted revival. Charlie Xavier has exhibition some truly awesome powers in the X-Men comic, and he did not more than once and been brought back. Yes, this specific ability has never been examined in the comic story. At least not yet. Brought back yet this specific ability has never been Brock Bad, yet this specific ability has never been examined in the comic story, at least not yet. What happened in 2017? Logan could not have been a solution to that problem, or perhaps more interestingly, the cause of Charlie Xavier dramatic and power seizures. Before Patrick Stewart reprised his roles as Xavier in Logan and Doctor Stranger, the Multiverse of Madness in approached in the 2006. He approached in 2014 X-Men Days of Futures Past, which also showcased the return of many classic that members. This also included Hugh Jackman, who fused in not too distant futures again. The cinematic many fans speculate that Professor X explained his return to the other off screen at some point, since none of the cast questioned how he was alive and looked the same after Jan Cree. Stanley vampirized him. Plant of theory are still floating around the fandom debut and imagination how Xavier could have. Plenty of theories are still floating around the fandom debut and imagination how Xavier could have coming back to perfectly. In the director commentary for X-Men The Last Stand, the filmmakers throw off the comment man has a twin brother named P. Xavier. In the instant before his death, Xavier transformed his connections into this other body. It's possible his physical capabilities remained the same because the brain that means muscular were heavily absorbed. Others say he was put back in the wheelchairs during the fight with the Sentinels. While this explanation is not the most airport plot-wise, the idea of being able to transfer connections into the brain that man was set up in an in an earlier scene. Sadly, one of the biggest mysteries in the X-Men films never got to the grand explanation it deserved. Instead, it was taken for granted the audience would not think too deeply about how he was able to do it. The end of X-Men Days of Future Past struggle, it does not matter anymore. The return of the original X-Men cause was a fitting send-off for the first Marvel superhero team to be a hit the box office and suggest the events of the last stand play out every different. The events of the last stands play out very different. X-Men Days of Future Past quality erased this event. Days of Future Past made the last stand's biggest plot hole irrelevant. When Logan awakes in 2013, he sees the X-Mission thrilling Chance, Carey, and Cyclopo are still alive, meaning they did not die in 2006 when The Last Stand was set. In the new timeline credit in Days of Future Past, the X-Men must have found a different way to escape Braincock's Journal Staker than what audience saw in X2 X-Men United. Jane does not sacrifice herself so she does not tap into the dangerous part of her power. Xavier fat is now whatever it would be if Charles did not need his body. By the time Logan happened, it could not either mean to event leaves Twitcher bodies and his disline with the cost he paid. It could also mean Charles Xavier was always going to end up with that. The end of Days of Future Past also allowed by the cast to those events as they continue to do movies set around 10 years apart. If that version of the franchise made it to their version of the 2020, it's likely things would have gone differently. Logan would have survived as the final story from the branch timeline leading off from The Last Stand and dividing in the James Echo version of Professor X's Hyper Fate. Now it's just another branch timeline in the Marvel multiples. X-Men plot hole can still be answered in the MCU. Even though Fox X-Men franchise came to end in 2020 with the new maintained The World Alive Zone, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is building toward an epic crossover with the X-Men as suggested in the Marvel post-credit scene, which features the return of classic grammar beat and the recently released Deadpool and Wolverine, which features Earth 1005. Heavily, the MCU appeared to be on a collection course with the X-Men universe, with its character most likely to meet on the field of battle when Avengers Secret War finally hits theaters in May 2017. The X-Men return means that the many listeners plot holes from the original franchise could be revolved in the MCU. However, a massive crossover event like Secret Wars might not have the time to address these questions, especially if the MCU plans to robot the X-Men shortly theaters. It may be beat from the superhero franchise to simply ignore the many inconstants and discreping from Fox movie in favor of Saint Feet. Inconstant and deep rock from Fox movie in favor of starting fresh. There are simply too many plot holes to be addressed, and at this point fan does not really grow or why Professor X was able to return from the edit. The mystery was allowed to linger for over a dead end by the time. The mystery was allowed to linger for over a dead end by the time Secret War come out. It will have been 20 years since these questions when understand. The time to fix the X-Men franchise mistake is come and gone. Now it is the start to fresh. A possible X-Men 2 ending sequence revealed. We have got a scope on a possible X2 ending for everyone to sink their teeth into. Scope coming from someone in Fox. Mesos told some of his close friends that there is a talk about possible changing the ending to the X2 movie by the end of February 2 so that it can stay on schedule for its May 2nd release. The talk is about possibly having the ending include a scenes where new rescued to Xavier School or introduced included Gambit. He says the decision is close to being made because of how much X-Men fans wanted him on the sequel and they were told he would not be on it. But no, it seems there is a hope, although it most likely will only be a small scene that will introduce a new recent at the end. I cannot think I can't think of a better way to end the movie than to introduce the second most popular X-Men according to the Marvel, Wolverine's being the first. Just hear about it yesterday when my source code. Movie then to introduce the second most popular X-Men according to Marvel, Wolverine's being the first. Just hear about it yesterday when my source got back into town for a few days and my first reaction was to email you guys. Keep going what you do best. Space out. Thanks Jerry Devil for the scope. Stay tuned to latest X2 by keeping your eyes placed to our official X-Men 2 movies Valiant page. Click here. Don't forget to also check out X2 X-Men United. X2 all 20 minutes in the movie explain what their powers are. X2 X-Men United is registered as one of French's most successful interiors in part due to its number of maintained characters. After already adding a handful of 21st century folks formula on X. X2 X-Men United is regarded as one of the current's most successful earlier in part due to its cheaper number of maintained characters. After already adding a handful of 21st century folks formula on X titled the 2006. The 2003 film is a welcome new addition to the Disney Plus streaming service. Of all of the movie within Fox X-Men universe, X2 X-Men United is arguably the one that mostly fully embraced its source material focused on the team ups and group dynamics along for some of the series most compelling fight scene and superpower display. It also tapped into the dark themes of the operation that have yet Marvel maintains appear with the covered of all of the movie within the Fox X-Men universe. X2 X-Men United is arguably the one that most fully impressed its source material focus on team-ups and group dynamic allowed for some of the series' most complex fight scenes and superpower display. It also tapped into the dark themes of the operation that have set Marvel's maintains appear with the crowd superhero genre as X-Men face a villain who is planning a total gross of every maintain in the world. Franchise of the Hill of 2000, X-Men the sequel being stacked many familiar maintains but also adds survival more to their ranks, ranking from fully fleshed our characters to the small of chemo appearance. Here are 20 children of the atom who appears in X2 X-Men United and what power they have. The role that capture Hugh Jackman to Super Stadium also has the distance of being the X movie. The role that captured Hugh Jackman to Super Stadium also has the destination of being the X-movie universe most recognizable characters born James Halvent but going by Logan after losing his memories. Wolverine possesses extends healing power and internally born claws that extend from his hand. During experimentation at the hand of Weapon X Project, Logan claws were overloaded for the Admire are nearly introduced still allow. At the start of X2 X-Men United, the Griffey Canyon search for answer at Anika Lake's secret melody compound, and that spectre is central to the plot of the film. Played by Patrick Stewart, Professor Xavier is a powerful depth capable of mind control, earning memories, reading and projecting thoughts, and location other often through the aid of Cambro. Extraordinary wealth and optimistic for a features in which maintains and human can so exist peacefully. Xavier is a father figure for these standard, many of who have found themselves abandoned, ostracized and it's the rake from a world that hate and fear them. One of the most formidable maintains on the planet. The X-Men follow-up show that there are forces looking to use Xavier's physical ability to wipe out all of the comic superhero. Born in the Germany and a survivor of the Holocaust era in Lesser Magneto played by Sri Lanka, McKellen is able to manipulate magnetic field and control metal with his thoughts. It's able to manipulate magnetic field and control metal with his thoughts. Militant and distrustful of humans, 2000 X-Men film saw Magneto kidnap Rouge, using her a continue for a weapon maintained to induce maintenance on this course, but leaders gather on the nearly early Iceland impression in a plastic person at the end of the film. The master of the magnetism finds himself ready for escape and to pick up the mission where he felt love. The master of magician finds himself ready for escape and to pick up the mission where he left off. Oro Manoro, aka Storm Patriot by Halle Berry, is weather goddess capable of harness the force of features by creating lightning, tornado, gets of winds, hail, snow, and rain. While Storm original are not explored during the Irretal film series, X-Men reveals that she was one of Xavier's first students at leave at the timeline, along with Scott and Jane. X2 X-Men United so X2 X-Men United sees Oro as passionate teachers and defender of her characters. Changed by the events on Liberty Island and experience rapid growth, with her talented and telepathic powers, Jan Scary, played by Fake Man Jensen, is often regarded as the most powerful of the X cinematic universe. Omega level maintains capable of moving and lifting incredible large object with her thoughts and picking into mind with relative escape. Jane also shows slightly pre-co-negative abilities in X2 X-Men United, a departure from her comic book counterpart. In her opening scene at the museum, her shade voices dominate Jane's mind, and with a careful listen, Fancy may recognize lines spoken later on in the film. Throughout the franchise's second installment, Jenny Grey continued to dominate with her device. Jane's mind, and with a careful listen for many recognizable spoken later on the film. Throughout the franchise's second installment, Jenny Grey continued to dominate with her dynamic ability, clutching in an impactful and movie-star sacrifice. James Madison Cyclopo, aka Scott Summer, may be a bit of a boy Scott, but his topic and safe force beam still pack a serious punch. Cyclopo filled liters of X. James Madison Cliffo, aka Scott Summer, may be a bit of a boy Scott, but his topic convention force beam still pack a serious punch. Koploco, the field leader of the X-Men and a partner to Jan, was taken in by Xavier at a young age to help control his highly disturbed power. Rushly to tomato walnuts for Jan's attention, Cyclopo remains a straightforward follower of Xavier and his ideology. Alan Cumming played Kurt Wigner as the amazing Nightcrawler for his one-time outing in X2 X-Men United, born with the blue skin, a devil tail, and 3 digital on each of his hand and feet. Nightcrawler teleport ability is augmented by his acrobat movement style, night visions, and volcanity ability, making him a welcome addition to the maintained team. Good gothic feet and forcefully at odds with his traumatic appearance and his being the film's taken after being used discarded by William Stryker from his own division drawing ends. After her introduced in the previous film, X2 X-Men United sees a more grown-up and conflicted Hugh, portrayed by Anna Pion, with the ability to absorb power, ability, and memories through skin-to-skin contact. Her on-screen version is deadly more grounded than her comic book occupation, who generated performance power of flight and inevitability when Hugh turned her powers again. Controlled dynamic, aka Captain Marvel, at the start of the film. Ryu's was has begun still into her life at the Xavier instant, in turning into a relationship with Bobby, and maintains her comic to the Logan, with the who form a close bond in X-Men. The boy Siobhan Ashmore's play Iceman, another Omega level, maintained with the ability to freeze airborne water particles to create ice beam, plastic project, and pierce. In the pure film, Bobby Darkness mostly in the stand background, but in X2 X-Men United the plays a more central role, joining the restaurant against Taker and effectively earning his place on the superhero team. All thought pretty different than his voice cracking and comedily boast comic book irritate. This baby is sure to have an irritant strength and confidence beyond his years, even this phase of his is forced and bigot family. Present as Iceman Frenemy Piero or John Alden, has the ability to manipulate films, making it necessary to cry a lighter throughout the film. Recast with actor Aaron Stanford after the character's before cameo in X-Men. Not much is known about Piero's backstory, however. While visiting Bobby film, the periodic maintain is shown to reset the series of household family photos, perhaps sitting at once Trago past. played with athletic and grace by Rebecca Romijn Manticore-Riven. Draculholm is a gifted shapeshifter. Although her frequency seems low and scary appearance is her true form, at least in the movie universe, a skilled assassin, hacker and fighter, Mosquito is one of Magneto's most devout followers and the star of X2 X-Men United. Her finding will push her even harder to her help leader escape. Immortal while some sort of romantic relationship with Iraq is allowed to, there is no concrete evidence that the two men are in teams, a plot line that would be relevant in the prequel film which follow the original X-Men trilogy. In the X-Men movie universe, Yoriko Oima received her admission upgrade after her own advance with the Weapon X project, but unlike Voliner, her class extreme for her fingers, a few variant material artists, and the with access to her own healthy factor. Death Stryker is a much for Voliner and is English in a William Stryker body guard throughout the film. However, is it really start for a such seemingly in control woman? Her story is one of a tragic growth, manipulation and bravingly based on Marvel comic Lady Deathstalker Yoriko on-screen depictions allow her being a maintained fan. By contrast, she is a it is relieved that for such a seemingly in-control woman, her story in one of tragedy, growth, manipulation and bravingly based on Marvel comic Lady Deathstrike Yoriko on-screen depiction allowed to her being a maintained. By contrast, she is a Caribou in the source material. 30-minute 143 Genesis Taker. While the characters may not have a director comic book equipment, Genesis Taker, Michael Red Mikey is sure to be William Stryker's son, wheelchair-bound and drugs, while used for his father bidding, with the powers of fabricate powerful illuminations with his physic power maintain 143 shares similar ability with Marvel Comics. While the characters may not have a director comic book equipment, chances sticker Michael Wright Maxey is sure to be William Stryker's son, while used for his father building with the power of fabric powerful elevation with the Physic power maintain 143 child similar ability with the Marvel comic mastermind characters who also had Jason as the first name is X2 X-Men United. It is relieved that Jensen's life was changed forever when Xavier Power unable to release his maintain after his father Magnike's request. No as a Collision is a Russian-born student at the Xavier School for a gifted young guesser, deposit actor Daniel Code Moore's limited screen time in X2 X-Men United. The fans of the comic were delighted to return Sculler's origin steal from and super strength has been helped to protect the students while 14-7. Grey making Lane is undersigned. His heroine is the reward in X-Men The Last Stand where they become a full-fledged member of them, playing a more prominent role. Seen in the first X-Men movie with a different actors in the role, Kitty Pryde is back for another cameo, this time played by Katie Stewart, with the ability to become unstable and plays through the stole object. Kitty uses her ability to escape from her adverse with relative escape. The character is a ministry in the comic and her youthful power served as a departure from a team mostly made up of adult maintains. Though Kitty's role in X2 X-Men United was small, Ellen Page assumed the part in the next X film and became a fully fledged member of the team. Fans of the Fox X-Men the animated series may have recognized Jobel in another X2 cameo. Ki Wong played the role and, though the theatrical version of the film cut much of the character's screen time, a deadly scene showed Jobel walking throughout the museum exhibit on maintain as her powers seemingly allocated in natures in the film, as opposite to her distinctive firework from the animated series and comic, being to magnify the character's history in the X-Men franchise has been an concession one, as she was later played by the Lane Condor in X-Men Landconder in X-Men, a film which is meant to take place some 20 some years before the events of X2. RT Middle portrayed by Bryce Hanson is loosely based on the Marvel comic characters of the same name, while the film never explored his maintained power save for his fork Blue Togni. The comic book character was introduced into the Cinephoid series X Factor and has ability to create holography projection of his thought. In X2, X-Men United a race never speak, suggestion that he is maintained like his comic book inspection. With a superhero scream teaser Classly aka Syrian uses her powers against those who infiltrate the school early into the film action. Her powers are nearly identical to Ben's here, who plays a prominent role in X-Men First Class. Whether or not branches the theater further in the film, as in the source material, is unknown. In her brief appearance since is played by Sean Kane. Control Window plays Jones, a role that was created for X2 X-Men United and does not have a director, partly from the comic. From what is shown during the film, Jones appeared to have control over technology. It is able to control machines with his mind. He is a student at Xavier School and clearly something of a night owl. Yes, that's right, Dr. Honk. Mako makes a brief cameo in X2 X-Men United before either Kelsey Grammer or Nicole Holt assumed the role. First played by the Steve Bragg, Mako is seen as a talking head on the news, talking part the maintained debut, while the character's cinematic continue is particularly challenged, especially since he's no in-show famous Blue and Fairy from in the next film in the series. It can't be assumed that it still has its app likely stunt, destiny, balance, and agility. Is a series noted for its events throughout the years. X2 X-Men United sets itself apart as one of the franchise's most certified film, more ability than this. In a series noted for its events throughout the years, X2 X-Men United sets itself apart as one of the franchise's most certified film, more application than its predecessor. The film made five from the Marvel Cinematic Universe biggest and broader approach by proving that the script follows so many. The film made way from the Marvel Cinematic Universe bigger and bolder approach by proving that a script following so many heroes could make for a viable and execute story. And with this band of Marvel, Mary maintains that it's not all that super passing.